Just a dusty old garage, Bulldoze. That's what the city inspector barked, clipboard in hand, as he kicked the cracked concrete. The old man didn't flinch, just turned the key, locked the door, and whispered something no one could hear to them. It was an eyesore to him. It was sacred ground. They gave him 24 hours to clear out. But when the sun rose the next morning, 3 military trucks pulled up, engines rumbling, and when a 3-star general stepped out in full uniform, he didn't ask for permission. He asked, "Who gave the order?" If you believe not all history lives in museums, comment, "Honor remains below." Clarence Miller, 8, was a quiet man who ran a dusty old garage at the edge of town. It hadn't serviced cars in years, but he still swept the floor every morning, still wiped down a framed photo on the wall. 5 young men in camouflage standing beside a Humvee. For most folks in town, Clarence was just the old guy with grease-stained jeans and a hat that said U.S. Army retired. The town had changed, new developments. Cafes, yoga studios, and Clarence's garage set right in the path of progress when the city began plans for a new parking complex. Clarence's small shop became a target. "You're not even open for business," the inspector said, scribbling on a notice. "This place is falling apart. You got 24 hours. Clarence didn't argue, just nodded and stepped inside. That night he sat beneath the dim light above his workbench, opening an old footlocker. Inside were medals, photos, and folded letters. One letter read, "If I don't make it, Clarence, keep that promise, keep the door open." He lit a candle, placed it next to a photo of 5 soldiers, one of whom had never made it home outside. Bulldozers were scheduled, orange tape fluttered in the wind, but Clarence didn't make calls, didn't beg for mercy. He simply cleaned the place one last time, like he always had. His garage had been there since 1968, when he'd returned from his first tour and opened it with money saved from combat. Back then, it had been the place where local boys brought their first cars, where fathers taught sons how to change oil, where veterans gathered on quiet afternoons. Now it was the last holdout on a street slated for urban renewal. The development company had bought every other property on the block. Clarence had refused their offers, each one higher than the last, so they'd gone another route. City ordinances, zoning changes, and finally condemnation. The inspector who came that Wednesday wasn't from Riverton. He was an outsider brought in specifically for these kinds of situations. No local connections, no uncomfortable history. Place is a safety hazard, he'd said. Barely glancing inside electrical, not up to code foundation. Compromised. The orange notice had gone up at 4:15 p.m., condemned scheduled demolition, 24 hours to vacate premises. The inspector hadn't bothered asking about the contents, about the history, about the small bronze plaque beside the door that read, "In memory of fallen brothers, Delta Company, 3rd Battalion." As twilight descended, Clarence had made only one phone call, brief, formal, no begging in his voice. By morning, a city crew arrived, yellow vests, spray paint demolition orders in hand. Clarence stood by as they began prepping. "Sir, you'll want to move along." One young worker glanced inside. "Looks like a pile of junk." To me, another chuckled, "Bet it's full of rats. Let's just knock it down." Clarence quietly stepped back, walked across the street and sat on a bench. Cars passed. People stared. Some snapped photos. A veteran's place gone without a fight. Then everything changed at 7:58 a.m. At a rumble echoed down the road. 3 olive-drab trucks turned onto Main Street at 800 a.m. Sharp. A black sedan pulled up, outstepped Lieutenant General Marcus Cole, commander of the 3rd Infantry Division. Silence fell, even the city workers froze. The general removed his cover, walked to Clarence and snapped to attention. "Sir, I got your letter." Clarence simply nodded. "Didn't think you'd come in person." The general turned to the work crew who issued this demolition order. A city supervisor stammered, "We have permits. This place isn't zoned anymore. It's sacred ground. The general cut in men, bled for this place. One died right behind that wall." A reporter who had been passing by began recording. Clarence finally spoke. "This garage was more than a shop. It was our rally point before every deployment, after training, after funerals. I kept it open for them, for their memory, for the promise I made when I came home, and they didn't. A city worker whispered I didn't know, because you didn't ask. The general said, voice hard. The general opened the garage door himself inside, helmets, framed letters from fallen soldiers, families, flag patches, a pristine folded uniform, a hand-carved memorial plaque with 5 names in 1 empty slot clearances. This man isn't just a mechanic. The general said he's the keeper of their memory. The city crew arrived at 7:30 a.m., clipboard checklists and coffee in hand, standard procedure. Mark utilities, establish perimeter. Document pre-demolition condition. The foreman approached Clarence with practiced sympathy. Sorry about this, old-timer city gave you notice. Clarence nodded once, standing straight beside his locked door. You got your personal effects out. The foreman continued, avoiding direct eye contact. What matters can't be moved, Clarence replied quietly. Look, these orders come from upstairs. Nothing personal. His younger crew members were less tactful as they unspooled caution tape around the property. Man, this place is a dump, one said loud enough to be heard. Doing the neighborhood a favor? Clarence didn't react, just watched with weathered patience. The demolition truck rumbled into position. The hydraulic arm with its wrecking attachment rose against the morning sky, a mechanical executioner. A small crowd of onlookers gathered, some neighbors, some curious passers-by, a few who recognized Clarence from around town, shaking their heads at the inevitable march of progress. No one intervened. No one protested until the unmistakable rumble of military diesel engines cut through the morning air. The convoy appeared like an apparition. 3 transport trucks followed by a polished black sedan with government plates. The vehicles pulled up with military precision, blocking the demolition equipment. Lieutenant General Marcus Cole stood tall in full-dress uniform cap, tucked under his arm, at FB5. He still carried himself like the young lieutenant who had once served under Sergeant Clarence Miller. In another lifetime, the crowd fell silent. Phones raised to record the unexpected confrontation. The general walked directly to Clarence, stopping 3 paces away. Then, with practiced precision, he snapped to attention and saluted Sergeant Miller. Sir, I received your message. Clarence returned the salute, his weathered hand steady. Didn't expect you to come yourself. General, some matters require direct attention. Sergeant, only then did the general turn to face the demolition crew, his expression hardening. Who authorized this action? The foreman stepped forward nervously. Sir, we have all the proper permits. Do you have any idea what this place is? The general interrupted. It's a war memorial. General Cole stated, his voice carrying across the now silent street. One that doesn't exist on any official registry because the men at honors died on classified missions. If you believe stories like these should never be erased, share this video and comment remember their names. By noon, the footage had gone viral. Veterans groups across the country demanded the city reverse its decision. One comment read, "My brother's name is on that wall. That garage is the only place I feel him." Local news anchors arrived. Reporters scrambled for interviews. Clarence stayed quiet. The general did the talking that afternoon. The mayor of Riverton arrived on site. We deeply regret what happened here. We didn't know the significance, the general interrupted. Because no one bothered to ask the man who served city officials, offered Clarence money, a relocation grant, a historical archive proposal. Clarence refused. This garage doesn't belong in a museum, he said. It belongs right where it is. The general pulled out a sealed envelope inside a letter from the Pentagon, effective immediately. Clarence Miller's garage is designated a historical site of national military heritage. Bulldozers were ordered to leave construction. Halted, Clarence's garage would stay, but something bigger happened within days. Soldiers and veterans across the country began arriving to visit the garage. Each brought something: a patch, a medal, a note to a brother, a friend, a commander. The garage became a living memorial one. Young Marine left a dog tag on the bench for the one who kept his promise. And on that same bench, Clarence sat quietly each morning just like always, except now he wasn't alone. The cell phone video spread like wildfire. Our General Stop's demolition of veterans' garage became the headline across multiple platforms. By mid-afternoon, national news networks had picked up the story. Social media exploded with outrage and support. They were going to bulldoze a war memorial without even asking what it was. This is how we treat our veterans. Shame on Riverton. The hashtag Save Clarence's Garage was trending by sunset at 2 p.m. The mayor arrived, flanked by city council members and the development company CEO. The press conference that followed was hastily arranged, damage control in its purest form on behalf of the city of Riverton. I want to express our deepest apologies to Mr. Miller. The mayor began, cameras flashing, had we known the historical significance of this property. General Cole stepped forward with respect. Madame Mayor. That's precisely the problem. No one bothered to find out before issuing demolition orders. The city officials shifted uncomfortably under his steady gaze. We'd like to make this right, the mayor continued. We're prepared to offer Mr. Miller full compensation for his property plus relocation assistance. I'm not moving, Clarence spoke firmly. This isn't about money. The development company proposed incorporating the garage into their design, creating a living history exhibit with proper lighting and climate control. Clarence shook his head. This isn't a museum piece, it's a promise. General Cole opened his briefcase and removed an official envelope bearing the Department of Defense seal. This letter, signed by the Secretary of Defense, designates Clarence Miller's garage as a historical site of national military heritage under Provision 47B of the Veterans Memorial Preservation Act. He handed copies to the mayor and the press. This designation supersedes local zoning ordinances and provides federal protection against demolition or alteration. The bulldozers departed by 3 p.m. The development company representatives followed soon after, but what happened next surprised even Clarence as the news spread. Veterans began arriving first from nearby towns, then from neighboring states by sunset. A dozen former service members stood quietly outside the garage. By the next morning, there were 50. They came without fanfare, without protest signs or angry chants. They simply came to bear witness, to remember, to show respect. An Army Ranger placed his combat knife on the memorial wall. A Vietnam veteran left a faded photograph of his squad. An Afghanistan combat medic hung her patch beside the others. One older veteran approached Clarence, tears streaming down his weathered face. My brother was John Miller, Delta Company. You kept his boots. Clarence nodded, third shelf still polished every month. The man embraced him without another word. If this moment moved you, tag someone who should never forget what service looks like, even after the war end. 1 year later on Veterans Day, a ceremony was held outside Clarence's garage. Hundreds gathered, a new plaque was unveiled. This is not just a garage, this is memory, this is promise, this is home. The mayor issued a public apology, and June 12th was declared Clarence Miller Day. But Clarence didn't speak at the event. He just stood in the backhand, resting on a worn bench after the crowd left. One young private approached, Sir. My dad served with you. He never made it back. Thank you for remembering him. Clarence handed him a folded photo. I kept this safe for you, the young man cried weeks later. Clarence passed away peacefully in his sleep. The Army offered to bury him at Arlington, but per his request, his ashes were scattered behind the garage wall where his brothers had once trained, laughed, and left for war today. His garage still stands not as a shop, but as a place where silence speaks louder than word. Visitors still come, veterans' families, kids who don't understand the war, but understand respect. And on the door, in simple hand-carved letters, it reads, Promises kept, names remembered. The city's development plans adjusted around it. The modern parking structure now curved respectfully around the small building, its brick facade a stark contrast to the sleek glass and steel that surrounded it. Veterans groups contributed to restoration efforts. The roof was replaced, the electrical system updated, but nothing inside was changed. Nothing rearranged. Clarence insisted on that it stays as they left it. He said that was the promise. When the crowds dispersed after the ceremony, a young Army private approached him, hesitantly. "Sergeant Miller." "I'm James Wilkins. My father was Michael Wilkins." Clarence's eyes softened with recognition. "Mike Delta Company radio operator." "Yes, sir." The young man nodded. "He never came home. I never met him." Clarence handed him a carefully preserved photograph. 5 young men beside a Humvee. This was his last day. Clarence said, "I kept it safe for when you were ready today." The garage remains exactly as Clarence left it, and on the door hand-carved by Clarence decades ago, the words remain. Promises kept, names remembered. Subscribe to Ironheart Stories. If you believe true honor never asks to be seen, but deserves never to be forgotten.